Hi, Keith here for NuWood products. Now in this video I'm going to be showing you the steps of how easy it is to install NuWood click and stick skirting. I'll run through why you should do it and how much time and money you could save, because there's no need to paint, no need to sand, no need to cut miters, and show you the finished product. So where do skirting boards come from historically? Well, originally they were introduced when walls were all wet plastered, and you can see here this is going to need a bit of wet plaster for when this reno job continues. But it's very difficult to get a clean stop of the plaster at the junction with the floor. So you get horizontal surface, vertical surface, need a clean edge, hence a skirting board. One of the other benefits of having skirting boards is that they cover the gap, you can see the pencil fits down in there, between the floating floor and the wall, because floating floors will expand and contract with changing weather conditions. The other major benefit of skirting boards is protecting your walls, whether it's from the vacuum cleaner, the kids, or, the case here, the leg of this piece of furniture being kept off the wall. So there's no marks on it, no marks on the paint, on the plaster, or God forbid, the wallpaper. Back in the olden days, when I started putting skirtings in, the traditional way of doing it for either an internal or external corner, which are 90 degrees, if your house is square, was to create two 45-degree cuts on the end of your pieces of timber, fit them together neatly like that, and you've got a nice square corner. That's okay if you get your cuts right. However, if you get a gap, fixing that gap can be a bit of a problem. On white skirting boards, not such a problem. You can use gap filler. But if you're using a real piece of timber, what do you fill it with to make it look nice and neat? The other issue is when it comes to either painting your skirting boards, or in the case of timber, you've either got to seal them or put a gloss finish on them, something like that. And attaching them to the wall is also a bit of an issue. One of the techniques used to be to use dowel, timber dowels, drill holes in the wall, put the dowels in, make sure that they were thoroughly affixed, measure up, put nails through the front of the skirting board into the dowels, hope you didn't miss. And then of course, if you've got dent marks where the nails are in the top of your skirting boards, you've got to fill over the top of those, sand them back, undercoat them, paint them. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of time, and there's the cost of the paint and the gloss stuff as well. NuWood have developed click and stick skirting, so there's no need to create a corner miter. What was developed is these corner pieces, and this allows you to get a perfect 90-degree internal or external fitting every time. And they come in pre-finished colours and styles. We're going to touch on choosing colours and design. Perhaps clean white. It frames the whole room like a Polaroid picture. Yeah, we know white is the default colour, but if you like the look, then go for it. The second option is to have the skirting the same colour as the walls, or as in this case, as the floor. Why this works well visually is you have less dividing lines between contrasting colours, and the space will seem to open out a bit and the room will feel a bit larger, even if you go with the darker colour. And lighter shades will help a room feel calm. The idea also works for the ceilings, and the coving or cornice does the same job as the skirting does for the floors. The third option is to choose skirting a darker colour than the walls or the floor. This is quite a contemporary look, and if you get really creative, say in a kid's bedroom, you'll have the added bonus of covering up scuff marks too. The charm of older properties with banisters, finials, picture rails and so on will give you a striking effect if these features are a darker colour, if that's the look you're going for. Pick a skirting colour to match. The NuWood click and stick skirting system is available in a range of colours. grey ash, walnut, cherry, blackbutt, soft walnut, white and dark walnut, and can be painted with automotive spray paint to match colours that we don't manufacture, for example, black. The shape to a degree depends on personal preference, but more ornate profiles like this will work well in older homes where a bullnose or a splayed profile are more contemporary. The skirting in this corner is a colonial. NuWood click and stick skirting is available in colonial, colonial bead, small colonial, bullnose, splayed, scotia and quad. Scotia is generally used over floating floors, vinyl planks, laminates, engineered and solid timber. You can of course use any profile, all of which are suitable for carpet, tiles and polished concrete. We're going to run through the tools that you're going to need to install your NuWood click and stick skirting. And there is some cutting to be involved and there's some options here. You can go the old fashioned way. You can use a set square, a pencil and a handsaw. You could use one of these. You might have seen these around. This slides back and forwards like this. The more observant among you will notice that the blade on this is pretty rusty. There's a good reason for that. It's mine. I'm not very good on it. I don't like it very much. I don't use it very much anymore. This is your traditional type of mitre box. But we know we're not going to be cutting mitres on this particular application, but it's got a 90-degree cut there and a little tenon saw like that will do the job. Again, a little bit of flex, but the skirting is forgiving enough to get away with that. Or you can go the whole hog and get a compound mitre saw. Now, these are pretty cheap. This particular model is only $79 and it gives you a nice clean cut. It's really the way to go. As you can see, we've clear felled the table so that we can show you the rest of your tools. And there's not a lot really to doing this job. We've already mentioned the set square and the pencil. You will need a tape measure, okay? A vitally important bit of kit. Got a scraper as well, and really that's just for cleaning off any dags on the wall so that you got a nice clean surface to put your click and stick skirting against. A caulking gun. As you can see, this is a bit old, battered, tattered and torn. It's mine. It's done a lot of work. It's lasted pretty well. You will need some kind of liquid nail glue. This particular one is a Loctite Power Grab, and the reason we're using this is it's water soluble. So it's easy to clean up, it's easy to clean off you as well if you happen to get any of it on you. So that's, it's not particularly specialised, but it is a water-based liquid nail adhesive. Some weights, and I'm just using some old bricks I've had lying around the place. There's always stuff lying around my joint, because there's plenty of weight in them, and you use them once we've glued the skirtings to make sure that they're nice and hard up against the wall. And so that we don't damage the skirting or the floorboards, I wrap them in old tea towels like this, and that keeps everything protected. And the last thing we've got here, I've just got a bucket of water with a cloth in it to clean up any spillages we might have. Now, when you're sawing any timber, there are a few things that you should definitely do. First of all, face mask. Face mask, a lot of dust about. Safety goggles that meet Australian standards. Earmuffs, because if you don't, seriously, the upper register of your hearing is going to go eventually, because these things are noisy. There's just no question about that. Other thing to consider is, if you've got yourself a new compound saw, read the book. I know it's a bit dull, but read the book. Electrical equipment, now I'm going to read this to make sure I get it right, should meet AS 3000. All right, that's the Australian standard, and you should have an RCD fitted. An RCD looks a bit like this, and it'll be in your power box in your house. What happens is if anything goes awry, this will flick and cut off the power. If you haven't got one of those fitted to your house, and a lot of houses haven't, you can get a protected distribution block which will do the same thing. So again, if anything goes wrong, it flicks, it's out, you're okay. Other things to think about is if you are cutting longer lengths of timber, say for example this, it starts off at 3.6 metres and you're going to be cutting it down, just don't go swinging it about, because you don't know what you're going to hit or who you're going to hit. Before you order your skirtings, walk around the space that you're going to put them in, whether it just be a single room or indeed your whole house. Number the walls if you want to. Make a mud map and a checklist. If you're doing a new build, chances are you've got the floor plan. It will be your friend. Then of course you need to measure up the lengths that you need for each wall and each space. You add them all together, divide it by 3.6, that will give you the number of lengths of skirting that you'll need for the job, whether it be a room or indeed your whole house. The other thing, of course, how many fittings am I going to need to do my skirtings? Now here, this is an end wall, we'll need 2 external corners. Back here, we'll need an internal corner there, an internal corner there, and so on around your whole project. NuWood click and stick skirting is available from your nearest Bunnings, but currently they only stock white. It can be ordered from Bunnings online, but if you would like any of the other colour options and fittings, these will have to be filled as a special order. Bunnings offer delivery and in-store pickup. In most cases, the wait time is 7 days, and your order is delivered to the Bunnings in which you place the order. If you have a specific requirement and you're willing to wait, we can set up a production run for you in the factory, in any of the finishes we have on hand. Contact us for more information. Now these are 2 packs of the 3.6 metres, so we've got 14.4 metres of skirting up there. 2 things considered. You don't want to have an over-length load and you don't want to have an insecure load, because the penalties for doing that can be quite severe. In Western Australia, check which jurisdiction you're in. In Western Australia you can go 1.2 metres forward of the headlights, 1.2 metres back from the rear of the vehicle. Any more than that at the rear and you need to attach a flag. And make sure it's secured. These are lashed down, as you can see here. My old man used to say, boy, is that tied on properly? Drove trucks, the old man. And the trick was, get the load, can you rock the vehicle with the load? And that means it's secure. And if that's the case, you're good to go. Usually we recommend you lay your skirtings around the room before you start to check the lengths, where you're going to cut, and check if you have ordered enough fittings. All good. These fittings are at the heart of the NuWood click and stick skirting revolution, quite frankly. This is an external corner. This is an end, in this case a right-hand end, and this is an internal corner. We put them in position, then we can measure up to begin cutting. In this case, our skirting is going to be finishing at this point with this wall, and we have a step through here. So that is a right-hand end going in that position there. This is an external corner, which is the end of this very short piece of skirting there, and that just sits in place there, and then we'll be able to measure the distance. Round the corner, we'll put the internal in. So the first method of measuring is to use your tape measure, and we're measuring off these inside edges, here to here in this case. I'll just move that a little bit, I'll move it back again, and I'm using that 10 centimetre mark there. I look across here, and this is 65, 66, 67. And we need to add 6 mil to each end, so another 12 mil. So I'll write down my 67 plus 12. That'll give me the distance of skirting, the length of skirting I need for that little bit there. Now that we've popped that internal corner joint in, this is an alternative way that you can measure the lengths you need for each section of wall. Here, we've got an existing fitting on a skirting piece, and it's already fitted. So what we do is we push this piece of skirting up until it's touching against that internal corner, and we're using again the outside edge here. We know that's touching, we know it's up against the wall, we mark there at the edge, and we're going to add 12 millimeters to the length of this piece of skirting. 6 millimeters for each end of it. Now with this second short section, the tape measure will do the job. And again, up to the end of the fitting there, and we're measuring to the end of the fitting there. Let's have a squeeze. 47.9 plus 12 mil. Draw a pencil line across your material using a square. You may have already done this when you measured and marked up your material inside. Gently pull down the blade without engaging the power and line up the edge of the blade to your pencil line. You might need to loosen the clamp and do some adjustments before you are ready to cut. Remember, measure twice, cut once. When you're comfortable the blade edge is aligned with your pencil mark, then engage the power switch and gently draw down the saw. Do not force it and release once the cut is complete and resistance disappears. On this project, I've been using a compound miter saw to cut the skirting boards. But if you're not comfortable using a saw like this, or you don't have access to one, or perhaps you're installing the skirting boards in a location where you can't use something like this, perhaps an apartment complex, or you're in some villas, something like that, and don't want to create the noise, you can cut them by hand, okay? So what do you need? Obviously our set square and a pencil to mark up your skirting board, a saw like this, not expensive, and a miter box like this, and you can get these at Bunnings, $8, $10, $12, they're not expensive, and they do a good enough job in this circumstance to cut it. Here, I've already marked up this piece of skirting. Now, if your piece of skirting is fairly long, you do want it to sit flat. I'm using an offcut, it's the right size. I'm propping it under that end so that my vertical cut will indeed be vertical. And then it's just a case of lining up accurately where your cut line is, putting the saw into the grooves, and I'm just adjusting it there so that that line is spot on, and off we go. There we go, through there, and for a handsaw cut, not bad. So it's time to stick our click and stick skirting. We've laid it out here, we know that it's cut to length, the 3 bits that we're going to put here. I've put a fitting on that end. Now you can glue them on, you don't absolutely have to. So first of all, just a little dab on the end, that's for the fittings. Now when you're putting the glue on, we're going to go from here up, and we only go as far as that. We don't go above this line, we don't want it up here because it could then go up the wall, and we don't want it going up the wall. And we're going to go all the way down the length of this skirting. The good thing about this, being a water-based adhesive, if you do happen to drop anywhere, and I'm trying very hard not to, then you can just wipe it up with a damp cloth. Now we will stick a wee bit in underneath the end of there, and then we are going to do these other 2 pieces that are going to go on this section of the wall. A little bit in the end, and again do the ribbon And we're just gonna err on the side of caution with this one. There we go, we'll just give it a extra little spot in there. So now we've got the glue on, line up the fitting at that end, and just putting a bit of pressure and making sure it's going to go into that corner. There it is. There is a tiny bit of spillage there. We'll wipe that up. Get ourselves a brick. Bang. Get a second one for this piece. Along here. Bang. Up against the wall. And this glue, even though it is a water-based glue, go off in 20 minutes, half an hour. I'll leave it a bit longer. If for any reason your walls aren't perfectly straight, run in a bead of, again, water-based gap filler. The other thing you need on hand is a wet cloth, just to smooth that over. You can actually do a lot of it with a wet finger and fill it in just around the fitting there. Just tidy that up. Don't overfill with this stuff. It does just, the beauty about these water-based ones is you can do precisely what you're seeing me do now. There it is, sweet as a nut. Let's take the wee bit out of that corner. Lovely.
That's the question about that one.
Look at that. That'll sink, so it'll probably need a second fill. We're ready to glue the last piece in this section of room. So what we've already done is the side pieces have been glued and the bricks and their coverings to keep everything protected are in place. I'm going to put this last one in. Now obviously with the fittings, this piece of skirting doesn't quite fit. There is a trick. This is what we do. We get one end in a fitting at one wall and then we actually bend the skirting, and it's got an enormous amount of flexibility, and we fit it into the fitting at that end, and it goes, and we go, click. Another part of the NuWood click and stick skirting story are these joiners. What the joiners allow you to do is join practically seamlessly lengths of offcuts together to make up a section of wall. You can, if you wish, cut fresh pieces for every length of wall, but if you've got anything that's over 3.6 metres, you're going to need to put a joiner in anyway. And by using the joiners, of course, you can cut down your waste hugely, save yourself quite a lot of money. So, here they are, little pieces of plastic like this. They fit into these machined grooves in the back of the skirtings. I've already put these two in. I put the other two in and bing, these two are now joined together. Magic. Keeping your skirtings clean. Remove them from the walls? Only joking. No, we don't. They stay in place. But they're very easy to keep clean, and in fact, all you need is any kind of spray cleaner like this. Do not use a powdered or abrasive cleaner on the surface. Basically, that's all you need to do. By the way, if you get something like texture on them, generally texture is very, very hard to remove, and if you've got kids, that might well happen. Orange oil or thinners will take texture off these, and they've got a lifetime guarantee. When you install NuWood click and stick skirting, you're using a 100% Australian manufactured renewable resource. Because while this looks like a piece of black butt, it's actually HDF, high density fiberboard. You can see that on the back, which is water resistant. And on the edge is the German manufactured laminate paper. This is some of the range. As I say, this is black butt, we've got cherry, we've got grey ash, and of course one that's very popular, the white. Because they're made from a renewable resource, plantation timber, you're not chewing up valuable, precious, original forest. So that's a good thing. It makes us feel good. It should make you feel good too, because it's employing people here in Australia to make NuWood click and stick. Like most manufacturing enterprises, NuWood faced one problem, and that is waste. And what do you do with? Well, back in the day, 50 trucks at 20 tonnes a go used to cart 1,000 tonnes of sawdust off the site. What does that look like? Well, about that building actually. However, they came up with a new solution, and in that 12-metre tower is a giant furnace. This large piece of Austrian kit is your ultimate wood burner, or in this case, sawdust burner. So the fire started in there, the sawdust comes in this pipeline here and is continuously fed. This is computer controlled, this piece of kit, and it's sealed up, and it could burn for 2 weeks at a time. There are filters on the system, there are blowback devices. It's absolutely fantastic, and it's burning in there at about 600 degrees. When the hot air exits the building at the side, it's running at about 100 degrees. When it gets to the top of the chimney, well, it's just a lot of hot air, and because it's been filtered, no pollutants in the atmosphere.